One of the most striking things about the terrorists responsible for the Mumbai attacks was their appearance. Take away the guns and grenades, and they looked like many other young men in this bustling city. Fresh faces, t-shirts, and jeans. Another thing in common? Ethnicity. The terrorists, all from neighboring Pakistan, could have easily passed as Indian citizens. Intelligence experts see this as an emerging trend. The classic guy next door being transformed into a soldier of jihad and working to destroy a country from within.
Having operatives from the societies that you're trying to strike is extremely beneficial. They're less prone to being caught and less prone to being disrupted, and I think we'll see more of an attempt to use them.
Terrorism expert David Gartenstein-Ross has closely studied this homegrown Islamic radicalism.
Even though Western governments officially don't profile, Al-Qaeda doesn't believe that. They're looking for operatives with Western passports who know how to blend into Western society, and thus will have an easier time carrying out the tasks that they're asked to accomplish.
That can mean blonde hair, blue eyes, and pale skin, white converts to radical Islam, an untraditional Islamic terrorist whose ranks are growing. The U.S., Britain, much of Europe, and Australia have all seen white converts convicted in connection with major terrorist plots. The U.S. military stepped up its drone missile strikes in the tribal regions of Pakistan earlier this year after seeing white jihadists at terrorist training camps there. The fear was that the men would strike inside the United States before the November presidential election. Americans first learned of this phenomenon back in 2001 when John Walker Lind, a former Catholic, was captured by U.S. forces in Afghanistan. He'd been fighting alongside the Taliban after training with Al-Qaeda. But there's one white convert who's even more notorious than Lind, and he's still on the loose.
Now it's your turn to die.
He's known in the radical Islamic world as Azam the American, but this fiery Al-Qaeda propagandist, who's threatened America repeatedly in recent years, once went by the name Adam Gadon. Raised on a California goat farm by a Jewish grandfather, Gadon discovered Islam on the internet at age 16. He soon fell under the sway of extremists and made his way to Pakistan. The rest is Al-Qaeda history.
Adam Gadon's emergence is strategic on Al-Qaeda's part. There's a propaganda victory for them in saying, we have someone among us who was once one of you. Someone who's not only American and white, but also has some Jewish blood.
So why would young Westerners living in free societies be attracted to an ideology that seeks to destroy democracy and establish Islamic law worldwide? Majid Nawaz had what he calls a typical liberal British upbringing. But he says after racist attacks in his neighborhood and bad experiences with religion, he became angry and disillusioned. As a teenager, he met a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, or HT, a radical Islamist group banned in several countries.
He was articulate, he was able to understand my problems, to relate to me. He spoke my language, and he was able to provide me the black and white answers to these questions that a young teenage mind who was very angry found appealing.
Nawaz became a leader of HT, traveling abroad to spread the group's message of Islamic domination. After serving 4 years in an Egyptian prison for his HT activities, Nawaz left the group. He now speaks out against what he calls Islamism. Nawaz warns that Islamic terrorists come in many shades.
There are black Muslims in Africa, and there are white Muslims in Europe. Bosnia being a classic example, but also the CIS republics that broke away from Russia, Chechnya. These are European Muslims. And they're white.
He says Western officials should remember that Islam is a religion, not an ethnicity.
When our government profiled and said, look for a certain type of person, then Al-Qaeda responded to that profile, laughing, and said, okay, if they're looking for a man of Middle Eastern appearance who happens to be between 20 and 30, then we will start recruiting from the ample amount of white Muslims that exist.
Some white converts, like Gadon, have risen to prominence in Islamic terror groups. In Somalia, a man calling himself Abu Mansour al-Amriki this year released a communique calling for jihad in the Horn of Africa. But at the end of the day, these white jihadis can face drawbacks.
There will be skepticism of a lot of these converts, a fear that some of them will be spies, a fear that they won't fit in within Al-Qaeda circles. Some of them will face cultural barriers. For example, those that don't speak Arabic or don't speak Arabic well will be seen as deficient for that reason. And most of them will never be regarded as Islamic scholars.
Although the vast majority of Islamic terrorism continues to be carried out by Middle Eastern and South Asian males, terrorists are attempting to adapt. In addition to white converts, females and even the mentally handicapped have been used as suicide bombers. It's all meant to keep al-Qaeda and its supporters one step ahead of the West's counterterrorism efforts. Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, Washington.